Hello, Theel here. I just wanted to give you a tip on how to center your level, more precisely how to center your TerrainInfoActor along with everything with it. There may be a few things you don't want to move, such as your main subtraction brush or your skybox, but in this tip I'm going to just move everything, and I'll probably afterwards move my subtraction brush back to where it was along with my skybox. Alright, so the reason why this is a difficult process is there is no tool to help you do it. You kind of have to manually do it, and there is a tool that allows you to move all your actors, but sadly you have to also give a scale, and you can't just leave it blank. You have to type in something, and so if you type in 1, it can rescale all your static meshes and everything. That's a very big no-no. So this is the best way to do it, and here what I'm doing is I'm writing the values down by which it's offset by. So the terrain offset is for the TerrainInfoActor is these values, XYZ values, about 10,000 X value, 4,000 Y, 130 Z. So I go to Edit and select all, and under Advanced, I'm going to make sure no actors are set to be lock location. In this case, there are none, but if there were, that would be blank, and you'd have to set it to false like that. All right, and then I'm going to change my terrain scale, and I'm going to use the measuring tool, which is I think it's Alt middle mouse. But first I'm just going to make sure I know which way I need to move it. So I'm going to have to move it 10,000 to the west. And here I go. I hold Control and then left click drag. And then I just eyeballing it here. You don't have to be perfect. The whole idea is to get it close but not perfect. And we're going to do another pass on it after this one. And here I'm just setting the grid size larger so I can more easily see where the origin is, which helps me kind of eyeball it here. And so I'm just gonna move it there, which is about right. I was a little off, but that's okay. And now I'm going to have to do the front view, or the height value. And here I'm kind of like looking for the TerrainInfoActor, because you can't like just be like, hey, take me there. So you have to kind of like find it. So there it is. And I'm going to move it down 130. And here I'm using the measuring tool again to kind of eyeball it. I moved it, I saved, I deselected everything. I'm going to go ahead and rebuild so my game doesn't look like that. Also, it's a good idea to rebuild in stages. Make sure that you haven't moved something to where the editor will crash. And now I am just making sure that there's nothing like just really outstandingly bad. But I didn't see anything, so I go back to the location, and here you can see I got pretty close with the X value. It's 4 off, the Y value 7 off, and the Z value I was not close with. It's 30 off. So we're basically going to do the same steps, except this time we're going to have to be a little more precise, which isn't hard because it's not as big values. And then so I'm going to here I'm making my actor icon a little bit smaller for the terrain, and that will allow me to better see how I'm moving it in relation to a smaller grid. And so I just close that out, and I'm going to go to Edit, select all actors, and now I have everything selected again. I'm going to move it to the west 4, Is that minus negative, or is that negative 4x? So I got to move it to the left 4 in the top-down viewport, which is west. And then, so here I'm holding control and I'm left-click dragging, and I'm in small increments. And now I got to do the y value of 7. And 7 is down. Positive 7 is down. I got to move it down 7. You can even see kind of the origin there underneath it. So I think I figured that out, and I'm just like, as I move it, I'm just like, yep, it's going to be centered. Close enough, right? And then the Z. And now here's where I made a mistake. I should have started with the Z value, moved it down first, and then moved it all over, because what I end up doing is changing the grid off of 1 to something a little bit larger, because I am moving it in a larger value of, instead of like moving it 30, you know, I just move it twice in 16 or something. And that was a mistake, because it actually offsets my XY again. But that's not a big deal, because then I'll fix it. So here I see there, bam, that's where I screwed it up, and it's all like mixed up now. I moved it in 8, not 16, so, but I moved it down 4, so it's going to be off still. I think I raise it back up a bit. Yeah, I do, yeah, right there. And so it's pretty much spot on, right on 30. And yeah, here's I give a little tip, like always do Z first, because I screwed up my XY. And now at this point you don't want to move it anymore. You just kind of want to eyeball it maybe, and then deselect everything and write down the values again. Here I'm going to be like 2 off in X. 1.7, which rounded up, you kind of want to round to the nearest, so that's 2. And then here I am about 1.5, not really more improvables, just 1 value probably, maybe 2 if you really want to get into the detail of it. And then the Z value is perfect, so can't really get lower than that. So I'm going to go to File or Edit to select all actors. Make sure my grid size is 1. Move it over to the east this time. I think I do 2. Yep, there you go. And then 1 down. And then I select it and check its coordinates. And it looks like we're good. It's close enough. Bam, bam, bam. They're all 0 point something, and nothing too high. So that's really good. Now we can actually zero out those values. But before we do that, I want to save, rebuild, save again, and then I want to show you how little of an impact this method has on the misalignment of your level and your terrain. So here I'm going to find a position in the world that I can kind of like show you the offset, or the missile, basically the change once I zero out the values. And I want to find a spot that has something very close to the terrain, but allows me to see it still, and then also see it underneath the terrain, but also see the terrain, but also see underneath the terrain. So right there, that's a good spot. You can see the terrain there a little bit, and you can see where the fence is kind of like puncturing the terrain. It's not perfect. So here I'm going to record the X, Y, Z values just in case it's off more than I wanted it to be. But as you can see, once I zero these out, you can barely see the terrain move at all. I mean, it's probably not the best example for the X and Y value, but the Z value it didn't budge at all. It's fine. So this is the best method of how to move your level, recenter your level in the world origin. Here I'm just kind of look around, make sure the terrain isn't floating through buildings at all, and it looks pretty spot on. I didn't think there was going to be any issues, so I'm just gonna I plan on completely overhauling this level anyway, so I will find issues later. And here I use the jump value to jump to world origin, You don't have to do it like that. It's just a little thing I do. And this is pretty much a floating terrain info actor, which is not ideal. You kind of want it to be under the terrain, and that way when there's any mishaps in the script and it has to spawn something in World Origin, well, here the players will see it, so they might see like a floating construction or like a weird emitter spawn there. Ideally, you want under the terrain. But that's it.